Welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. It is March 2nd and it's episode number 3. I'm your host, Tony, and welcome to the show. We've had a ton of great interaction coming out of the first couple episodes, people reaching out, whether it's on Facebook, Messenger, YouTube comments, email. It's really been enjoyable chatting with everyone who's reached out. You'll see me out in the various trucking groups, chatting it up, encouraging people, wishing them well. I can't thank you all enough for reaching out and sharing the podcast with others. This week I've got a couple amazing guests, which I think you'll enjoy. I know I enjoyed the conversations with them immensely. It was really a great time talking with them. We spent multiple hours just chatting, both before and after the interviews, and it was really a great time. I'll say a quick word about this episode's sponsor, and then I'm going to kick off the jingle and we'll get going with our pre-trip inspection. During the jingle, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, download, and share the podcast with your friends. So get that seat adjusted, set the cruise control, and let's knock out some miles. Let me give a quick endorsement to my friends over at True TMS. If you're a small fleet, especially if you're in the tanker business, they make a TMS, transportation management system. Keep track of all your loads, your billing, driver app to send load information, collect documents, all the good stuff that comes with a TMS. If you're looking for a TMS, consider giving a look to True TMS. I've known some folks over there for a long time, before there was even a True TMS. They know trucking, they care about trucking and the trucking industry. You'll see them at some of the shows. George goes out to the Trucker Jamboree. They care about our business, and they're interested in selling a product that makes a difference to people. So give them a look, www.truetms.com. So check them out if that's a good fit for you.
Paper breaker 1, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
All right, that sound, the horn blowing, is the signal that it's time to get going with our pre-trip inspection. It's always a good idea to make sure your horn works. I'm sure all your neighbors in the truck stop appreciate that if you're getting started at 3 in the morning. I'm just kidding. Might be an item you save for when you've got a little more room to yourself. But anyway, getting started, a few news topics I just wanted to bring up this week. It's interesting times in the freight market. Of course, it's Q1. We've got some positive signs out there. I've read quite a few reports about the freight market feeling a little bit stronger, a little bit of uptick in some spot rates, certain parts of the industry doing a little bit better, so that's a good sign. There's other parts that are still struggling, oversized, heavy haul, some of that larger equipment seems to be a struggle still. And then also to go along with that, we've got fuel prices went up basically across the nation over the last week. So still continues to be a little bit challenging out there for folks, and hopefully we get on the upside of this thing here sooner rather than later. I did also read that trucking CEOs are feeling more optimistic about this year than maybe they were coming into 2025, so that's a good sign. One other story that gave me some optimism was there was a story, I forget where it was, it might have been CDL Life. They had a story about an 80-year-old woman trucker, Candy Bass. She was the 2023 Women in Trucking Driver of the Year and still doing it. She was out there in the video closing the doors and doing her thing at 80 years old. She's got something like 6 million miles under her belt, and just what an incredible story across 5 decades of being in this business, man. It'd be great to talk to her sometime. Another interesting story was, I saw this one on a couple different outlets. It wasn't even just trucking news outlets. It had made it kind of more into the mainstream. Was a story about how many people would be willing to be truck drivers if they would make more money than in their current job. And it was something like 46% of people said, yeah, I'd be a truck driver. And I thought to myself, I don't know if you would. It's not what you think it is. I think most of us would agree it's a little bit tougher than what people have an idea of what being a truck driver is really all about. So it was interesting to see some of the stats in that article, and I'll post a link to it on Facebook. But I got a good chuckle out of that number. I'm like, I don't know. You you wander around America, and when you think about the hours that you put in, the situations that you put in, being away from home like most truckers are, yeah, I don't know if 46 people are cut out for this line of work. But anyway, I appreciate their enthusiasm. Also, this week I wanted to mention, so we got our website up and running. So it's still a work in progress, of course, but we've at least got enough up there so you can get links to anywhere you want to find the podcast. There's links straight to the YouTube videos of the podcast. We've got a page that's just the interviews. If you just want to listen to the interviews for the first time or for the fourth time, you can find that stuff easily. I've got visions of more information. I'm a trucking history enthusiast, so there's some things I'd like to do out there just from a trucking history and a trucking timeline standpoint that I think would be interesting to share and also have other people contribute to, because there's folks out there with a much longer history in this business than I have, and it would be good to share that information with other people, whether it's trucking history, trucking culture, trucking music, trucking books. I just got a book in the mail. Let me grab it here. That I had ordered, and it was about, so evidently trucking had kind of its heyday in the 70s when the Smokey and the Bandit days and the Convoy, C.W. McCall, trucking sitcoms, trucking TV shows, trucking movies. The CB radio was popular. Evidently, during that same time, the CB radio became incredibly popular in London amongst housewives. And there was all kinds of shenanigans going on with groups, and it was almost like a precursor to social media and even almost like podcasting. People were creating their own programs and broadcasting them out, and they had relay stations, all kinds of complexity of the inner workings of how a CB radio actually accomplishes its mission that I don't understand, but I'm going to investigate it more because I just found it fascinating that this was going on and I'd never heard of it until now. But I mean, things like that where we can share a little bit of our history with each other and kind of catalog and document some of these things so that everybody has a chance to not have to do their own legwork and chase some of these stories down, but we can share them out there with everybody. So lots more to come on the website. Check it out, channel19experience.com, and go check it out when you get the chance. Finally, here on the pre-trip inspection, there's an event coming up here in Phoenix, Diesel in the Desert. It's coming up this coming weekend here, March 7th and 8th in Chandler, Arizona, so a little bit southeast of downtown Phoenix. I'm going to head over there both days and check it out. It's presented by Pickett Custom Trucks. They've got drag races, dyno contests, light contests, show and shine, and a burnout competition. It sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. There's going to be a whole lot of diesel fumes and burnt rubber, and it sounds like the type of thing that's right up our alley. The diesel truck drag races are being presented by the National Hot Rod Diesel Association. I've never seen truck drag races before. I've been to the NHRA drag races, the funny cars and the Top Fuel and those races up in Brainerd, Minnesota a couple times, which is, I mean, that's something to see, hear, feel that is really quite amazing and incomparable. I mean, until you're sitting in the stands and feeling the rumble of those engines in your bones, like in your chest, you can't really comprehend what it's going to be like until you sit there and feel it for yourself. So this thing should be pretty cool to see. Swing on by if you're in town. Say hi if you see my wife Kwan and I wandering around. We'll have some Channel 19 Experience swag. We'll be wearing some swag ourselves, so you should be able to spot us in some black and lime green, and we hope to see you out there. So that's the pre-trip. It's complete. Let's push the buttons in and get this rig rolling. time for the main part of the show. Welcome back. On the 20th of February, the various enforcement agencies had themselves a little mini inspection blitz around the country. One of the reports I was reading came out of the Colorado, it was on CDL Life, and they were talking about Colorado's numbers. They did 9 hours of inspections at 5 different locations, permanent locations, mobile locations. In those 9 hours, they wrote out 137 citations, 1 warrant for an arrest, a whole bunch of safety and mechanical violations, of course, which is what you'd expect to hear, and then a bunch of tickets for failure to stop. And those are never pleasant discussions. Well, last week on the California Highway Patrol, their Grapevine Way Station has a Facebook page, and they had put out a post about drivers not stopping for the scales. And I quote, "All trucks must stop at scales," means all trucks must stop at scales. We've been focusing our efforts on those trucks that are required to stop and don't. Passing in groups won't help you, as these 3 found out, and then they had a picture there of the 3 trucks. You are guaranteed a roadside inspection, a ticket, and possibly an escort back to the scales for an out of service. End quote. It was a couple of drayage trucks and a bobtail. Not that I don't condone those kind of behaviors, but I do have a few stories of my own, and I'm sure a bunch of you do as well. So reach out, share those stories with us. We can use your CB handle, or we can keep them totally anonymous. I don't know where you're at with the statute of limitations on any of your stories, but I'll share one of my stories that didn't end very well for me. So this must have been back in around 2010 or so, before I'd hit a cow in Montana, and this was before that adventure with the cow. I was up in Montana, and at the time I was running Sealy mattresses out of Minnesota out to Montana most weeks. So it was a milk run, right? Hitting anywhere from 10 to 20 furniture stores, chain stores, mom and pop furniture stores, any place you can imagine they'd sell a mattress. We'd go drop off anywhere from 3 to 300 of them. It was hand unloading, the whole thing, floor loaded. I was in pretty good shape then, doing those every week. They packed them in there, wall to wall, floor to ceiling. You were lucky when you didn't open up the door at the first drop and have 3 of them hit you in the face. It was a full trailer for sure. It didn't weigh much, which could be an adventure up in the Dakotas and Montana, but you got good fuel economy, so we had that going for us. So anyway, I would usually empty out. It depended, but a lot of the time it would empty out in Missoula or up in Kalispell. And I can tell I'm getting older because as I was thinking about this story, I had to go double check some of the details. Not all the details necessarily line up. And I don't know if it's my memory getting bad or just things have changed since this happened 14 or so years ago. I was looking at the atlas and I was looking at Trucker Path and I was trying to figure out which scale this happened at. I can picture it in my mind, like I can see the scale and I can see the intersection, the whole experience, but I couldn't find the scale, so maybe they closed it or moved it after all these years. And anyway, I would final out at this mom and pop store, usually. I'm on the west side of Missoula. It's just a little store all by its lonesome, kind of in an area. You're like, why is there a furniture store here? There was a 4-lane highway running west out of Missoula. It was on the north side of the road. You would come at it from the east heading west, and you would hang a right into it, and then you go drop off your mattresses, and then you'd get back out. You couldn't go back east because it was a divided highway, and there was no way in heck you were going to get a truck across these 2 lanes of traffic, unless it was the middle of the night. And you unload the mattresses when the store's open, or maybe slightly before the store's open, so you're starting around 8, 9, 10 in the morning when the stores open up and the employees show up. By that time, there's too much traffic, and there was no feasible way you were going to make a left, not without putting about 10 people's life in danger. So you had to go right. You had to go back west, and then I could catch another 4-lane divided highway going north and get back up to I-90 there, and then head back east to Missoula and find a truck stop and figure out what's what for the day. I tell you that part because you had to go west, and the way station, so I was like maybe a mile and a half. I had to go west out of this furniture store, and then I could go north. on the other north-south highway. But the way the way station was set up, it was on the southwest corner of that intersection of those two 4-lane divided highways. It was a station that wasn't manned most of the time, and it was, okay, this is my opinion, it was a stupid setup if you ask me. And the reason I say that is, so I'm coming out of this furniture store, I got a mile and a half, I'm coming out trying to get up to speed, and it's 50, 55 mile an hour speed limit, so people are going, it's Montana, right? So they're going 65 miles an hour on this highway. And so I'm trying to get up to speed, and people are dodging, swerving to get away, because no matter what, even if I get out and get going as fast as I can, there's odds are some cars in the right lane are going to have to get over to the left lane, because I'm not going to make it up to that speed in a mile, and anyway, I got to make a right-hand turn. And so you pull out of there, you get going, and about somewhere half mile, 3/4 of a mile from that intersection, so half mile, 3/4 of a mile from where I got going, getting up to speed, was the way station sign that would tell you whether it's open or closed. The first couple times I delivered there and got out, and I realized there's a way station there and how it's situated, I'd get out and try to get over to the left-hand lane, and then after a couple times doing that, and you realize, well, this way station's never open, you just sort of fall into the habit of getting out, getting in the right lane, not getting too worried about getting over in the left lane because the thing's always closed. Rather than risk everybody's life as I make a zigzag across the highway for a scale that's never going to be open, I pop out on this fateful day in the right-hand lane and pick up enough speed so I get up to 40 miles an hour, and I'm going to slow back down. On this day, as luck would have it, the 4-letter word was out, and I'm in the right-hand lane, and there's traffic blowing by me because they're, like I said, they're going 60, 65, I'm going 40, 45 miles an hour, and I'm in a situation I didn't really want to be in. Now, I could see over at the scale at this point. By the time I hit the sign, you can kind of see what's what at the scale, and yep, sure enough, there's a couple trooper cars in there, and luckily I'm like, well, there's a truck on the scale, there's a couple lined up behind them, they've got customers to keep them busy, plus the way the scale's situated, their view's kind of blocked, there's a good chance they probably don't even see me over here, so what the heck, I'm just going to go north and try to get out of here. I said some prayers, hit my blinker, slide into the turn lane, and I make it about a mile towards I-90, and then the cherries pop up behind me, and I know this is not going to be the day I expected. I get stopped, get pulled over there on the right-hand side of the northbound highway, and trooper marches up, proceeds to ask me what the hell I thought I was doing. I thought about giving him an explanation, but he really didn't leave the door open long enough for me to even get past all the smart remarks that were in my head to what I would actually say. And at that point, he'd already said, just get your rear end back to the scale and I'll deal with you over there. So we swung around, and that was a nice, long, dreadful 1-mile march of shame back to the scale house. He escorted me up on the scale, and then he proceeded to wait for me to weigh, and then we escorted me around back and made sure I didn't get lost between the truck and the scale house. We got in there, and then the lecture began, of course. At a couple points I did try to inject an explanation, but I abandoned those thoughts of redemption pretty quickly. At this point, he was typing pretty furiously. I deemed discretion the better part of valor and kept my mouth shut and just waited to see what the end result was going to be. Now, the reality was there was going to be more issues than just me not stopping for the weigh station if he really wanted to dig into things. So I just kept my mouth shut, and luckily he didn't dig any further. He had a citation in hand. Bird in hand is worth two in the bush, I suppose. So that was it. He gave me the citation, gave me the rest of my stern lecture about not to do that ever again, and I got my ticket for failure to abide something or other and my 300 and some odd dollar fine, and then I went on my not so merry way. Now, don't blow the scales, people. You're going to get a ticket. I don't want to encourage bad behavior. Like I've said, I've got a few more scale stories to share when the time comes. And please share yours with us as well. Some of them are funny stories, some of them are not so funny stories. Sometimes the DOT officers can be quite funny in their own right. It doesn't always have to be grumpy and serious, they can be funny too. And plenty of times the absurdity of the situation, the regulation, the reality of things, it's not always lost on them. They can have a laugh with us too. It still may result in a out of service violation, but we can have a good time with it. Now, if you don't have any way station stories to tell, guess what? There's an opportunity around every bend. There's no time like the present to make your own story. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't go create any more hassle for yourselves. But the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance has their next big blitz planned for May 13th through 15th countrywide. So whether you like it or not, you may not have to find them. They're going to come find you. So that got me thinking maybe we should plan to start some kind of annual trucker cruise once they announce the dates for the CVSA Blitz Week, and maybe just avoid the problem altogether. I also just found out this week that Jan down at Trans Carolina Permits has a travel agency on the side, so maybe Jan can hook us up with some good deals on permits and group cruises. So if you decide not to have your proper plates, permits, etc., then you should probably definitely book the cruise. And speaking of Trans Carolina Permits, let's get on to the interviews. I've got Big Cal, and then a second interview this week with Cindy. But first, a word from our sponsors this week of the interviews, which is Trans Carolina Permits, and then we'll get on to Cal. Trans Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. The company's been in business since 1977. They've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, various applications and permits, FMCSA, Authority 2290s, IRP tags, DMV tags, trailer plates, state filings for your business, overdimensional permits, not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA and mileage reporting, so your state-by-state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, www.transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870. Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's welcome in Big Cal from Big Cal's Truck Kitchen. He's gracious enough to talk to us a little bit about his trucking experience. Cal, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you. It's so great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation to be able to come on your podcast and to share a little bit of trucking knowledge or anything we're going to talk about this evening.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Cal's got a pretty cool Facebook channel. He does updates every day, multiple times a day. Starts off the day with coffee with Cal and shares his experiences on the road with everybody. It's really a great, positive, uplifting experience.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun doing this. We had talked earlier and everything, and I was mentioning to you that I was back in mid-August when the page kicked off, of course, with the 0 followers. And now I just checked my page when I stopped today and getting really, really close to that 2,100 following mark. So it's a tremendous blessing to be able to have this many people coming along for the ride. I feel gracious that people just tune in and like to hear the stories from the road and what I'm cooking. And like you said, coffee with Cal in the morning, just wishing everybody a wonderful day and just getting on and just saying hi to everybody.
So you've been at this a while, right? So tell us about the beginnings of your trucking career. How'd you get into trucking?
Well, I remember coming out of high school and just working a little bit of a job and everything. I'd always been very curious about traveling. My mom and dad both drove. I had some uncles that drove as well, and I just like going on road trips and stuff like that. So I remember that's something I kind of stayed tuned in on. Whenever I got to being real close to 21, I remember going to truck driving school. Do you remember MS Carriers from Memphis, Tennessee? They got bought out
Yeah,
by
sure
Swift.
do. Blue and white
Yep.
trucks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mike Starnes was the owner there. I had ended up seeking out their school, and I applied and everything, and I went down just after I turned 21. And yeah, I was very excited to do that. And that's where I got my starting from. Got an amazing trainer. He had been driving about 15 years, and we went out for about 7 weeks together. More after about 3.5, he said, "Man, you're ready to be cut loose." I said, "Well, let's take a couple more weeks. Let's have a good time and everything." So it just all kind of spiraled from there. Just running over the road for literally just about the last 29 years.
Yeah. So what year was that when you got started?
I was right around 1996.
Cool. So what kind
Yes,
of
sir.
truck did you have starting out in 1996 that you got your feet wet with?
Well, when we were in school, we did the old Freightliner FLD 120s. There was a couple of cab overs I remember, but Freightliner Century class was my first truck. And right when I passed off my trainer's truck, and I was one of his only students within that year that had got seated into a brand new truck for all the skills that I'd done out there with him, my performance reviews, and everything like that. I got seated into a brand new truck, and I'll never forget that truck number is 18045. So that definitely stuck in my head, and that was really really neat to be able to do that.
I wrote that down a few times, did you?
Yeah, that number just rolls around in my head. I got one picture of me with that truck, and whenever I had first come home after being out with my trainer truck and getting signed my own equipment and everything, so I do have one picture of that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm terrible now at remembering numbers because I don't remember phone numbers anymore because you just type them in your phone once. And like if I was stranded on the side of the road, like I don't know if I could get a hold of anybody. Maybe my mom. I still remember my mom's phone number because it's been the same for like 40 years. So I think I can find my
Yes, sir.
mom.
Yeah, I feel the same way. We used to know phone numbers and all the kinds of stuff and be able to rattle it off. And I thought about that. Me and a friend of mine, we were having that discussion not too long ago, and I was able to come up with, of course, my wife's phone number, her cell number, and I got about three-quarters of my mom's cell number right, and that was about it. So I wouldn't even be able to call work or, maybe we'd be good for 911 in case something bad happened. But
Yeah, times have changed.
yes, sir.
So what kind of work have you been up to over these 29 years? That's quite a span.
Oh yeah. Well, MS carriers, and I'm not going to go through my whole job history, but did a little bit of flatbed and RGN work for about a year, and then like you and I talked before, I drove with Transport America, just running OTR. A lot of OTR. Something that really stuck out was for about 4 years, I ran rock and roll shows to where I toured with different bands. I worked with an owner operator who had 4 trucks, and I did that for 4 years. And whenever you signed up on a tour, you were out for the whole time, whether it be 2 or 3 weeks or 3 or 4 months, and just toured with everybody from rap and rock and roll to gospel to gymnastics groups to the symphony orchestras and stuff. So that was a real unique experience for all the different venues and the different places we went to.
Yeah, no doubt. So is that when do you have one of the kind of the bigger sleeper cabs for that?
No, it was just a regular truck and trailer like we have now, and
Oh,
it would be anywhere from like a 2 truck tour the whole way up to the one time we went into Madison Square Garden with Britney Spears, and it was 41 tractor and trailers just specifically for her for that show. It was pretty
oh
crazy.
wow. Yeah, no doubt.
Hmm.
41 trucks worth of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There was 4 trailers. It was just subwoofers. I was trailer, let's say 36. And they said exactly 727. You have to be backing in off of whatever it was, 45th Street to come into Madison Square Garden. Not 726, not 727, but 725. You must be backing in, no ifs, ands, or buts. So yeah, it was pretty nerve wracking to hit those exact times that they wanted you to be there.
Wow. Yeah. You see some of those trucks running around, whether it's the show rigs or the NASCAR rigs and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, that must be a whole different type of trucking.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is. It's just like retail. Retail's a whole different thing of trucking. We were talking earlier. I did the whole Walmart tour for 3 years driving for them, and to run the rock and roll shows. I mean, it was so much different than freight. You really got to look at it at a whole different angle when you're doing that, opposed to actually hauling general commodities and everything. When they say the show must go on, basically hell or high water. I don't even know how else to place it. The show must go on. There's no excuses. You have got to be there. So especially when you're a big part of the show, hauling the stuff that's just completely irreplaceable for the show to go on.
So what are some of your favorite trucking stories?
Mm.
That's opening a can
So,
of worms, right?
oh man, I knew you were gonna put me on the spot with that. Oh my goodness, some of my favorite trucking stories. I actually, one of my favorite trucking stories. You've heard of the artist Billy Joel, the Piano
Yep.
Man, right?
Yep.
Okay. The very first time that I'd met him, we were down where the Duck Stadium is, and I think it was Pasadena, California. We were doing a load in, and it was one of my very first trips out doing this. And I can remember we were getting the trailers offloaded and stuff, and they were getting ready to do sound check and whatever else. Now, this stadium was absolutely huge. And so the microphone, I just went up and tapped it, not knowing what I was doing. I went up and tapped it, and I started singing, "Sing me a song, you're the piano man," just totally goofing around. And here comes walking up behind me and taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, do you mind if I give that a try?" And it was Billy Joel himself. I was so embarrassed, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, of course. So, yeah, just some of the stars that I got to meet over that 4 year span, some of the people that I've gotten to meet. And like we had talked about Christianity earlier, I mean, I've been to visiting 60 to 70 churches and all the different services I've been to and people that I've gotten to meet and went out to lunch with, of course, and fellowshipped and had all kind of different church events and just different shows and concerts and everything. It's really, truly just been an adventure. My goodness, we could go on for hours and hours with just stories of just out of those two realms of trucking.
I was talking with Danger Dave on episode 1, and I mean, most of our stories about dumb things that we did and
Mm-hmm.
mishaps that we created ourselves and had to figure out our ways out of. But, you know, it's
Yeah.
nice to hear somebody has cool stories like that.
Yes, sir. Well, when within my first, I think it was 3 or 4 months of trucking, I was out solo, and there was no GPS, there was no phone. You just had to grab your map book and your log book and just take off and just do it. I can remember I got lost up in Vermont on a very, very snowy night. I don't know how I did it, but I ended up on the very top of a mountain in a ski lodge. And I swear to you, I quit my job 1,000 times over. I said, "How did I end up here?" Well, I didn't hurt any equipment or nothing, but it was an actual bobcat that got up there, and even he asked the question, "How did you make it up top of the hill? We've never had a semi up here." I said, "I don't know." I was looking for places that are around because Vermont, you can't be off the beaten path too far, or else you can get a ticket or something. The roads were so bad going up that I literally had to wait till the next morning. Of course, they plowed them a few times, and I still had to be guided to get back down. And it was so questionable. When I went back down, it scared the bejesus out. And I thought, how, and the love of God, that it marveled me. But I made it down without a scratch as well. But that night, I quit my job 1,000. I was like, "This is stupid. I can't do this. I'm tired of getting lost. I'm this, I'm that." But yeah, once I got through the first 6 months, I just kept pressing on, and things eventually got better. I never lost respect for the industry, but things have definitely gotten better. And I've had some crazy mishaps, a few accidents, a few this, a few that, and whatever else, and all the trials and tribulations that a lot of the over the road guys face, tickets and accidents and mishaps and whatever else. So yeah, it's definitely been an adventure. And we were saying earlier as well, I feel like sometimes I've lived the life of three different people, or the amount of adventures that three different people have lived in their lifetime, just seen so much, done so much, experienced so much. And right when you thought you've seen it all, and right when you thought nothing can get any crazier than what I've seen in this past year, nope, nope.
Wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just wait till the next 10 minutes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a different lifestyle, right? And the experiences, like we were talking about earlier. I remember this was probably maybe mid to late 90s. I was delivering at a place down in New York City, and I was standing there with a guy on the dock, and he saw on the
Hmm.
inside of my trailer was painted that you're from Minnesota. And so he asked me, like, "You really from Minnesota?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from Minnesota." And he goes, "Have you ever seen a cow?" And I'm like, "You mean like the animal, like the one we get milk from?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah, we got a lot of them." And he's like, "How big is it? Is it really as big as they say?" And I'm like looking at him kind of funny. And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, they're about, stand about head high at the shoulder and look down at you mostly."
Hmm.
And he's like, "Man, I never seen a cow before." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"How is that humanly possible?" Right? Like, but
Hmm.
I mean, he told me he'd never been out of Brooklyn before.
Yeah,
And I mean,
yeah,
it blew my mind, right? To even consider, like, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, there's got to be more to offer than just cornfields and soybean fields. Like, I gotta go find it. But, other people live lives where they're kind of in a very small circle and they don't get to see anywhere near the experiences and things that we've seen as truck drivers.
yeah. I've experienced that as well, being in Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and stuff. People, they just live in, let's say, like a 6 or a 9 block radius. Everything I have is right here. I got my deli, I got the hardware store, I got the this, I got the that, and they've been just right there in. people from Brooklyn. Oh, I'm not going into the city. What do I need to go to New York, into Manhattan for? I got everything right here in Brooklyn. This is my neighborhood. I'm not leaving. And I've actually met people in Hasidic Jewish neighborhoods that they never left. They said, my people are right here. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to load your trailer. I'm going to go right here. I live 3 blocks down the road. I'm coming back to work. And it just blew my mind for the amount of traveling. I figured out my miles and everything like that. I ran a total on it. I think it was the mid of last year, I'd hit 4 million miles.
Wow.
Yeah, I run pretty aggressively, about 160. I ran 163,000 miles last year. And there's been some years it's been closer up to paper logs where it's closer to 200,000, but just staying out and being gone OTR for so long. But it amazes me just how people just lock their sights in, just staying in their own little hometown. They'd never getting out, never getting away. Granted, we see things from the windshield. A lot of times, I've been past Niagara Falls 93 times, let's say. I've heard the water. I've smelled the water. Have I ever seen it? No, you can't get a 53-foot trailer up through there.
Right.
So, yeah, just never had the time. Went to Tonawanda, went to Buffalo, picked up the loads, delivered here, delivered that. Nope, still haven't got a chance to see it. Never took no time off or any time off to be able to see those sites and stuff. But when we were doing the rock and roll shows, if a tour was, let's say, we did a lot of stuff with Jimmy Buffett. So if it was like a 3-day thing, when we got there, we got set up. We figured out we were parking our trucks and trailers. We had to be back for load out at a certain time. So the next 3 days was yours. Basically, just don't get put in jail. Don't get arrested and do anything stupid. So then we would get an Uber or get rental car or whatever else. And then we just went out sightseeing through the wine countries in California or up through Canada or just, wherever. And that was a really unique experience to where you could really get out and see things other than just looking at things through the windshield.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So that was a really short time. Like I said, it was about 4.5 years of doing that. But I feel like I've had so many experiences with all the different people that I got to meet and whatever else. But even out of it all, I was never really starstruck by anybody. I just always had a mentality, well, I'll put our pants on one leg at a time. I did have respect for people that are big in the music industry and stuff and whatever else, but I don't think I've ever been truly starstruck by anybody. I always gave them the respect, pulling for their tours and whatever else and whatnot. But yeah.
So tell me about Big Cal's Kitchen. How'd you get started with that?
Well, there was a page that I'd like to put my meals out. My wife helps me meal prep and everything like that, or does a lot of my meal prep. So then that way, when I go out on the road for 2-3 weeks, everything's frozen in containers and put in Ziploc bags. And then when I go home, it's like Russian roulette, man. I'm just pulling meals out. I'm not even looking to see what I'm having. I'm just pulling. All right, my refrigerator holds 16 meals. That'll last me about 3 weeks, hot meal every other day or every day or whatever else. So anyways, I found this cooking page on Facebook and I introduced myself one day and say, hey, my name's Calvin and I like to cook in my truck and I like to bring meals from home, blah, 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 and everything. And it was all about just genuine cooking and just regular food and stuff. And so it started taking off a little bit and people were following me and, hey, truck driver, be safe. And then people asked questions about trucking. Hey, you're one of the first truckers we've had on this page, blah, 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 blah. So I was, after getting a pretty good following, my post started picking up a lot of traction and just sharing a good word and posting my meals and what I was doing out on the road and stuff and kept it within the page standards. And all of a sudden, this lady inboxed me one time and she says, really? 2,500 likes off a bowl of chicken noodle soup? Or no, it was homemade chicken pot pie. That's what it was. Homemade chicken pot pie. Are you serious? It's like, what are you talking about? She said, I can't believe the amount of traction, the amount of likes and comments and everything people get. She said, have you ever thought about running your own page? I said, no, ma'am. I said, I have no interest in it. I really don't probably even have time to do that or anything or even would know what to do. So after her virtually reaching through the phone, grabbing my arm and twisting for about a couple of weeks, I was like, fine, you set it up and we'll see what happens. So her and I corresponded over Messenger for about 2 months. And she's like, what about this? What about that? We fished around for the name. We came up with the logo and all. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. It'd be neat if something like this really took off. So all of a sudden one day I was off. I was out on the road and she sent me a message. She said, whenever you're ready. I said, what do you mean? She said, I have everything set up. Here's the name. Here's the password. Here's everything. It's all developed. All you got to do is just go in through your device, log in, and it's all yours. I said, are you serious? She said, yep, it's ready to go. So I went on there and I started looking through, completely lost on what this whole page was from the very beginning. And she was walking me through some stuff virtually. And I remember creating a welcome to, and this is what I'd like to do with the page, and any suggestions, any help, whatever from anybody that may sign up with me, give me a holler and see. So it started off as every other day or whatever, and just trying to feel things out, and very close personal friends from the original cooking page. I had sent them invitations, of course, family and friends, other truckers and stuff. And I was always keeping an ear open of, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you tweak that? And blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then before I knew it, people from other Facebook pages where I was sharing my meals and sharing an inspirational word and stuff, they heard about it and got the invitation, and they gave me a follow and a like on my page. And we were talking earlier, as of right now, I think it's 2,078 people are following my page with about 1,400 likes. And I'm just completely blown away that in such a short amount of time, just how much this has taken off, and the amount of interaction from so many different people with this is just absolutely amazing. Whenever I'm out here and I got some decent content and stuff, I'm able to post usually sometimes just 1 or 2 times a day. I've gone up as high as 5 times. My kids rode with me last summer, and almost every meal we ate, because I let my kids interact when we were cooking in the truck. Pancakes and eggs, we made cookies, and we did this, we did that. And I mean, that stuff right there blew up on its own, and we just had a really good time with it as well. So it's just a daily occurrence, and now it just seems like it's truly a part of my life, to where I wake up in the morning, like you were saying, coffee with Cal is a little segment I do in the morning, to where Facebook lets me do a 3-minute reel. So I'd get on there, usually sometimes 1 or 2 takes. Sometimes I can do it on the first, sometimes it's 5, just depending upon the lighting and everything. 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, up to 6, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And just to get on and just leave an inspirational message. Hey, just coffee with Cal. Thanks for joining my page, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And I just, leaving a nice message for people. Hey, just have a great day. Whatever happened yesterday, don't let it bother you. We're going to have a great day today. Don't talk about the whole Monday's blues thing or whatever. And this is what I'm doing. And this is where I'm kind of going in the general vicinity and stuff. So that's kind of taken off. And that's usually about 6 days a week, and sometimes 7. Of course, whenever I'm home, sometimes that doesn't get on, and people understand that and they respect that, because I'm home with my family. So that's kind of the gist of what's going on with the Big Cal's Trucking Kitchen.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it doesn't take very many before I got hooked, right? And then I was like, where's Cal this morning? What's Cal up to? Which state's he in? Which way's he going? Whether it's good weather, bad weather, big news over the weekend, you got a new truck. So,
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was very blessed about that this past weekend. I was blessed with a brand new truck, and I'm on, I think, my 3rd trip with it. I'm sorry, my 2nd trip with it. And the company I work for is just a phenomenal company. I don't really plug them, but my coffee cup has the truck's name on it, and of course pictures of the truck and everything like that. I've never heard my company say, hey, don't put us on there. I'm sure they're probably getting some sort of, I don't know, I don't even want to say good reviews or whatever, but I'm sure people definitely know who Dick Levy Trucking is now by now. But just out of protection for myself, and I guess you'd say protection for what I'm hauling and everything, I never give my exact location unless I'm leaving, because then I'm on the move. And that way, that kind of protects me and protects the company's equipment and everything like that. That way, just in case there is that loon tune out there, that, man, Big Cal, he's down to such and such. We're going to go find his truck and beat on his door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, man, I seriously doubt anything like that would ever happen. But it is pretty cool, though, because a few drivers from Dick Levy, they follow me, of course, my friends, everything like that. And I've actually been recognized a few times, even at a truck stop. I'm walking across. I mean, I'm 6'10". I got a big tattoo of a spider web on my head. I'm a pretty big boy. So I stand out like a sore thumb. I'm not kidnapping nobody or robbing a bank or stealing a car anytime soon, because I've been driving for so long, been recognized all over the country. But yeah, walking across the truck stop parking lot or in the thing or whatever, and I've had people just stop and point at me. And I look at him. Can I help you? Big Cal's Trucking Kitchen. I was like, are you serious? So that is just, man, it just made me grin from ear to ear. I was like, yeah, man. He's like, yeah, I'm so-and-so or whatever. And I commented on this post or blah, blah, blah. Man, I love your content. I was like, man, sure enough. Come on, man, let's get some more followers. This is great, And so just being recognized like that, it's just, wow, that's pretty cool, I mean, it's right there in the trucking industry, of course. But yeah, that's really, really neat.
yeah, that's cool. I do have to ask a question, because I did notice it on one of your posts a while back, 2 days back, which was, I did see the Trailer Park Boys up on your iPad or your screen there. You a Trailer
Yes.
Park Boys fan?
I got into them. I'm in about season 8. It's a pretty risky show. It's one of those things that it's almost like a train wreck. You need
Yeah.
to look away. You probably should look away, but at the same time, you're kind of spreading your fingers and peeking through your fingers, because you just want to see what happens next. Yeah, but I think I'm in season 9 now, and I'm about ready to delete it off the queue just because it's just getting more monotonous and everything. But I'm a big Seinfeld fan. Everything I watch on my iPad through Netflix or through my Apple account. Got a whole bunch of movies and TV shows downloaded, but yeah, it's always about Seinfeld. Seinfeld's always usually playing in the background, even for just background noise while I'm messing on Facebook or doing whatever. So
Sure.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big Trailer Park Boys fan, especially the truck driving parts. And I don't know,
Hmm.
it's kind of the mid, when Ray's the truck driver and their adventures, and Bubbles tries to get his CDL. I mean, it's just,
Hmm.
there's just a level of goofiness to the show at times that you're just like when they hauled the rig cab into the trailer
Hmm.
park and Ray was sleeping in the rig cab, Kenworth coffin sleeper.
Yeah. I think Bubbles is my favorite character because he's just so over and above and beyond. Got them real thick bottle glasses, Coke bottle glasses and everything, and he's an absolute scream, talking about having the kitty and bringing
Yeah.
people's cats in to take care of them and stuff. But yeah, that whole show is just a train wreck. But like I said, it's so funny. Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. There's a guy on. It's almost like the same thing. There's a guy on YouTube, Dread Pirate Trucker. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
He's an absolute loose cannon. And a buddy of mine turned me on to him. He's like, you just got to watch one video. You'll be hooked. I said, what do you mean? He's, man, this guy's a train wreck. It's either the very best or the very worst of things. Okay. So I turned it on, and this guy's about 1,000% drama. And all of a sudden, hey, just want to do the big reveal. I'm working for such and such company. And he's like, oh, it's the greatest company in the world. Every orientation went good, blah, blah, blah. And there's the next video. Let me tell you why you shouldn't drive for. So he's been like 37 orientations and wrecked a couple trucks and got stranded, and somebody blew his car up or something. It was just like, oh my gosh, yeah, it really makes you feel good about yourself. It sucks how this bad stuff's happening to this guy, but how much chaos and drama as he calls it. But
Right.
yeah, I called my buddy back like 2 days later. He's like, what'd you think about old Dread Pirate? I said, man, I watched like 15 of his episodes. Man, I lost so much sleep in the last 2 days. I can't stop watching this guy. He's like, yeah, it makes you feel pretty good about yourself, doesn't it? I said, yeah, we're not doing too bad out here.
It's all in which lens you look at things from, right?
Yeah, exactly. I try not to see the bad in people to make myself feel good, but some people, it's pouring. It is just pouring out. Like, man,
All right.
well, maybe this is the best that they can do, so we're still going to cheer them on and just hope for the best.
What I hope this podcast is about, like we talked about earlier, and what drew me into your content in particular
Mhm.
was just the positivity of it, right? There's plenty of
Yeah.
ways to find a way to complain about today, but let's start off the day with a cup of coffee and see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And last night I tried a new segment. I mean, it was something so simple and so basic, man, but the response from it was absolutely amazing. I think it had over 200 likes and about 75 comments. I put on there, I had my coffee ready for in the morning, a little bag of donuts and my coffee cup. Everything was ready. And I put on there, I hope everybody has a good night. I hope you had a great day, da da da. But the last paragraph was, I know a lot of people go to bed alone. I go to bed alone every single night. I'm always saying good morning, but let's change things up a little bit. A lot of people don't hear a heartfelt good night. And that's what I want to do this evening. I want to say, hope you get some good rest, have some good dreams, and that you go to bed with a forgiving heart and nothing weighing heavy on you and stuff. And just wishing people farewell, like a virtual tuck-in, I guess you would say. I know it sounds really corny, but I was like, man, that was laying heavy on my heart to do something like that. And I thought, okay, well, somebody's going, oh, this was stupid or something. And I'm always thinking the worst of things, but I couldn't believe the amount of, hey, Cal, good night. Thank you so much. I pray that the Lord keeps you safe tonight. And man, I hope you have a good evening. I hope you get some good rest and enjoy that new truck. And once again, just that little bit of positivity, man, it comes back just 100-fold. And I'm like, wow, it's such a tremendous blessing. Even running into the bad storms and stuff like that, I tell people, hey, I just came through such and such. It was a bad storm. I'm so blessed to be parked here. Lots of trucks all over the road, upside down, freight everywhere. I'm, pulling the trigger. I'm just going to go ahead and stop for the night. And I appreciate every single prayer, appreciate every single good thought and message and everything. I just want to let you guys know and just check in real quick. I'm doing well. We need to pray for the other drivers, the first responders out there. Pray that everybody makes a good decision and gets stopped beforehand and not try and get that extra 5-10 miles down the road. So yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just beaming with positivity. And the messages that come pouring in, I don't want to say pouring, I'm sorry, maybe about 5 or 6 a week. Cal, the word that you shared, the scripture you shared, that was the on timing, because I'll actually get on there 1 o'clock in the morning, hey, this was laying on my heart. I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but I felt that the Lord spoke into my spirit this morning, this evening, this afternoon, and just share a word. And man, the confirmations that come back, and it's like, my God, I've been struggling with this. I've been praying about this. I was asking the Lord for an answer about this particular question or about this particular thing. And I said, holy smokes. And it was just multiple confirmations about whatever I was talking about and stuff. So it felt great. And I think people in the world now, they need that positivity, because you turn on the news, it's depressing. You turn on TikTok or Instagram and people's like, oh, this is happening, that's happening, this was killed, that was done, or whatever else. And just to share just a little bit of encouragement, regardless of even what's going on in my personal life, but just to share that little bit of encouragement to help lift others up, because that's what the Bible says. We're supposed to love one another the way Jesus loved us, and to lift, encourage, love, share, help, feed, take care of one another, and the Lord will definitely take care of us. So keeping it at the most general aspect that I can, not to really offend anybody. I mean, I'm very open with my Christianity and my faith, but not to offend anybody. I'm going to reach out and have a ministry of doing this and reach out and just encourage folks, because even from being out here on the road, being by myself and hardly ever interacting face to face with people, if I can share that kind of encouragement, if I can share that kind of an uplifting message and everything like that, and just it puts a smile on one person's face, even once a week with 25 posts, then that right there, that smile could be like a stack of dominoes that falls. You never know the ripple effect that one smile that gets passed on to the one smile that gets passed on to the one smile, just that domino effect that's going to do.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. That's truly what it's all about, is just paying it forward, holding the door open. Have a great day. Have a blessed day. Can I help you out with that? Hey, excuse me, ma'am. Let me pay for your coffee. You got your hands full. Swiping your card real quick. Just different things like that, without looking for recognition, but just to be a decent, good, wholehearted, loving human being to somebody else. And that's honestly I had to wrap it up, that's what it is right there. It's just being a good person and just passing on that love, encouragement, and whatnot. So
Yeah, I mean, you have no idea where those dominoes lead that you tip over when you do something like that. And
mhm.
and and oftentimes they reach somebody who needs it most, right? It has a tendency to trickle to the person who needs it most, even though you may never see where those dominoes end. And we have an
Right.
incredible power as a person to become a force multiplier. So yeah, well
Mhm.
said, Cal. And that's one of the reasons why,
Yeah.
I reached out to you, because there's a power in what you're doing. And
Yes.
I'm grateful for it as well. I'm grateful for every coffee with Cal I've had so far.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And I just wanted to share with you real quick my favorite Bible verse. And it's so simple, but yet so powerful. Hebrews 13:1. Let brotherly love continue, is what it says in the King James Version. It doesn't get any easier than that. Let brotherly love continue. I don't care who you are. I don't care what faith you are. I don't care what skin color you are, where your background is. I'm going to show you as much love as what Christ shows me on a daily basis. So just trying to be as genuine and as transparent as I possibly can be.
Well, Cal, I can't thank you enough for jumping on the show with us and talking through your experiences and your page and your philosophy on things. It means a lot to a lot of people. So keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. Like I said, it was a tremendous blessing. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And I'm very excited to be able to share your page on your YouTube channel and your page on my group. And I just hope, man, you get a whole bunch of subscribers from it and everything, and people get a chance to, because there's people's all the time asking, what's this about trucking, what's that about trucking and stuff. And this here, from the little bit of each show that you've done so far that I've listened to, this is going to be a great insight for people to learn more about the transportation industry. I got friends that haul cattle, flatbed. They do all the stuff that I don't do. And I'm consistently, hey, what about this? Well, how do you secure those coils? Well, what do you run if you're hauling ice cream? What do you haul at this temperature? And then they pick my brain about things. So it's always neat to learn about something new. And so many people have just became curious about trucking that's far as, well, I don't know this, or how do you sleep? How do you wash your dishes in the truck? And where do you take a shower at? How long are you out for and stuff? And so
Yeah.
it's really neat to be able to educate the general public and to be able to tell them, hey, stay away from the trucks going down the road. Either stay far behind them or get way up ahead of them. One of the tires blow or something, it's definitely not going to end well for you. So yeah, just about educating the public and also informing them about what's going on.
Yeah, there's still, I mean, yes, there's been TV shows and ice road truckers, and there's various,
Mm-hmm.
YouTubes and TikTok videos and all that stuff, but there's still a general mystery, even amongst ourselves, right? Of the stuff that we've
Mm-hmm.
never done, never hauled. You with your experience with the shows, that there's just plenty that we're just curious about, and it's fun to share that stuff with one another. I'd asked one guy who had made some nice comments on some YouTube videos. I'm like, when are you going to come on the show and tell your stories? And he's like, my stories are boring. Right now. I'm driving I think he called it an articulated dump truck, and I'm like, well, right there, like
Yeah, what the heck is
what
that?
what what does that thing do? Like,
Right.
let's share some stories here. I don't know. I've met some well articulated truck drivers and some not so well articulated, but I never heard of an articulated truck. So
Wow.
we've
Okay.
got some things to unpack here.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's pretty neat. I
Yeah,
never thought
so
about it like that. Yeah.
we're gonna have to find out. But yeah, great having you on the show, Cal, and hopefully we can stay in touch. We'll probably get you back on here again.
All right, that sounds great. You have yourself a wonderful evening. Thanks for everything.
And you too.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, great interview with Big Cal. Big Cal's Truckin' Kitchen. He's a fantastic guy. We really had a great time talking with Cal. And so check out his Facebook page. I'll put the links up. I've already got one link out there from earlier sharing one of his coffee with Cal's. So check him out every morning. Get your day started off to a nice, peaceful cup of coffee with Cal. You also got the opportunity, Big Cal, come tuck you in at night too. So next up, we've got our interview with Cindy. Really an amazing conversation. So many interesting aspects to that conversation. Cal's been in the business, what I think he said, 29 years, going back to the mid 90s. That's about when I got started too. Cindy had been started in the late 80s, early 90s. So really three different perspectives on a similar era of trucking. We'll take a quick minute to talk about Tax Mommy Jackie here, and then we'll jump right into the interview with Cindy right after that. It is tax season. Truckers, you know your math doesn't math very well, especially now since ELDs got into the picture. Some of us could do a little bit of math when it came to doing our recaps and understanding how many hours we had left. We've had ELDs for a while now. Some of our math skills are rusty, so hire a professional to help you with your taxes. She's got a hazmat endorsement, and now she's licensed with the IRS to do people's taxes. She does my family's taxes, my business taxes. She understands trucking, she understands deductions and how to maximize all the advantages that the tax code allows for your business, for your personal taxes. She's affordable. She meets you where you are when it comes to cost. She's not just in it to rack up a bunch of fees. She's a great person. Reach out to Tax Mommy Jackie and get your tax work done through her.
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Anyway, so what's up?
Not much. I'm excited to talk to you. I listened to the podcast that Chris had sent over, and yeah, wow.
Yeah, well, it's just one little section of my life. I started driving in 1990, so I've been in the trucking industry for a while, a little bit now, anyway. Went through a school, but still started old school,
Yeah, I
if
was
that
going to
makes
ask you because
sense.
the story on that podcast episode, it started basically you getting out of the truck and going over as a contractor to a weight. And that was kind of one of my first questions on the
Right.
list was how you got trucking in the first place.
I dated a truck driver. As a matter of fact, my papaw apparently drove a truck. I don't remember that. My mom and my dad both told me that he drove a truck once upon a time. We're talking about like 89, 90, 89, I guess it was. I was a single mom with 3 kids, living off the system. I had a little bit of child support I was getting from the ex, but once you get into that system, you're into that system. And I could feed my kids and live better if I didn't work than I did if I did work. And I didn't like that. I didn't want my kids brought up in that system. We all have a past. Thank God that one's way back there. Woke up one morning and after I had gone and done a month's worth of grocery shopping, and the kids had decided that they were going to make me breakfast, and everything in the fridge and the kitchen was all over the stove, the table. I didn't know how I was going to feed them, didn't know what I was going to do. So I shipped them off there to their dad and went through a truck driving school in Center, Alabama that's no longer there, and started trucking, try and figure out who I am and give my kids a better chance. Let me straighten myself out and give them a thing. And I fell in love with it. It was a natural. And I love the road. I ain't quit yet. Shattered both my wrists, and still I'm out here one way or another. Once a truck driver, always a truck driver. Once you get the diesel in your veins, it's not going to go away. It stays. And I ain't driven a truck since 2008, but 3 years to heal with my wrists, and I've been in a pilot car ever since.
So what kind of stuff did you haul
But
when you were just getting started?
well, I was a chicken hauler, dead bird hauler. I started out with a company in Georgia called Blankenship Transportation. I went through that driving school in Alabama, was living with my dad in Georgia, and went to work for this company in Canton, Georgia. I'm not sure if they're still there or not. I've never looked it up. They had reefers and what I called sour milk hauling. We did a lot of craft foods and yogurts and sour creams and cottage cheese and all that kind of stuff, and the typical chickens and typical reefer stuff. That's where I started out, was hauling a reefer. Pulled that, and outlaw chicken hauling and stuff. Second company I worked for was a little outlaw company in Russellville, Arkansas. I had old international cab overs, triple digit cab overs, pulling 45-foot no sliders and 48-foot trailers. I think 53 footers were just coming around and stuff at that time. So I didn't have a 53, but yeah, they'd load me up with chickens out of Arkansas, and I'd haul them somewhere in the southern region, no further west than El Paso. Once in a while, we might go to Ohio, but if you got north of about Missouri, Tennessee, Southern Virginia, you were out of our territory for the most part. But we'd run dead birds out and produce back, and all just as hard and fast as we get it. Back in the day, I used to could go from Arkansas, haul chicken down to Orlando area, Tampa, something like that. Unload, reload tomatoes going to Oklahoma, either to Tulsa or Oklahoma City. I would haul them back to Russellville, Arkansas, and I would make that round to Florida and back to Arkansas in the same time it took somebody to go and make 2 drops in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So I did those as hard and fast as I could do them.
Yeah, back when
Of course,
you could do it.
yeah, back when a lot of people had triple digit trucks and you had paper logs.
Right.
Of course, back then they were a book stapled together, but you learned real quick how to pull the staples. Pull this.
Yep.
2 or 3 of them in your buy you a briefcase just so you can keep the extra log books so that you don't grab the wrong one. You only have the one up front. you
Yep.
know.
Yeah, a couple of the times the second logbook went out the passenger window as I was pulling over to the side of the road.
How long have you been in the trucking business?
Yeah, I grew up in it, so in the 80s,
Oh,
and then
okay.
I started driving for myself in the early 90s. So yeah,
Oh,
kind of same
sweet.
time period.
So
Yeah, it was the
you've been in it as long as I have, so you know what the trucking industry was like back then.
yeah, for sure. If you had a good safety director who knew when to look the other way and just slide those logs to the back of the file cabinet and make sure they never came back out, we're all good.
Stayed in the no file, the bad boy file. That's where I stayed most of my early years of trucking.
I was gonna say I had one safety director. I always wanted to catch up with him later. I just because he was one of those types of guys you were like, do you just not know what you're doing, or are you just looking the other way? Like you couldn't tell if it was deliberate or
Right, right.
not. But-
Oh yeah, I've had some of those. I tell you what though, the best dispatcher I ever had it used to be the owner of the company my husband's working for now, Christensen Transportation. I drove for him. Well, my third husband, Chris is my fourth. That's a long story. Um, I was driving for them when my third husband and I were married. They had company trucks at that time, and they only had maybe 150 trucks at max. Of course, this is back in the, oh, let's see, I went to Iraq in 2003. So the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, I drove for them when they decided to go from company trucks to lease operators. They offered us the truck we were driving, and it was a 379 Peterbilt with the 72-inch bunk and windows on the sides. It was
Mhm.
it was a nice truck, but by that time we had been a team in the thing for about 2-3 years, so it had some miles on it. I couldn't talk my husband at the time, Bill, into doing the lease purchase, so we went to a company that had trucks leased on there. And then later on, they pulled their trucks, so we stayed with them where we were because still couldn't talk him into going back to Christensen. And then we got in Ogden, Utah, and that's where he tried to choke me to death. I threw his ass in jail, loaded the trailer 7 hours later, and all the ass. But anyway, the man, Gene Christensen, the man who started that company and all, he was a dispatcher. That's where he sat. He let his son, president of the company, he let his son run, do all that. But he sat in the dispatch because his philosophy was if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen in here. And he's right.
Right.
But he only took teams and a few select solo drivers. And if you were one of his solo drivers, you threw the logbook out the window. You just made it look good.
Yep.
Because I think that first month after Bill tried to choke me to death. But anyway, my husband and I Bill and I were working for it out in Ogden, Utah. He had a problem with alcohol, a lot of things, abusive marriage and stuff. He got drunk in the bar that's next door to the Flying J up there. And I don't know what he did, but he pretty much I drug his ass out of there before he got to a fight. And things went from bad to worse. He tried to choke me to death in a hotel room up there. And to this day, I don't know why I'm alive. I don't know why he quit squeezing, but I am. And I threw him in jail, refused to go to the hospital, just wanted to leave. I should have gone to the hospital because he messed my voice box up. Something got messed up in there. But yeah, Gene Christensen, even as a teen, he'd run Bill and I out of hours all the time. I swear that man knew how we could run a load better than we did. Because I would tell him, oh, that ain't enough time for us to get, well, just do the best you can, he'd say. Just do the best you can. And we'd be early. Somehow we'd get it done. That man knew what we could do better than we knew what we could do. That's a good dispatcher. That first month after Bill tried to choke me to death, 2 weeks after that, because the company did not fire him and I was running into him on the road, I called Gene Christensen direct. And I said, Papa, I want to come home because we called him Papa Gene. I said, Papa, I want to come home. He says, well, I'm wondering why your ass ain't here yet. I was kind of like, well, I want to be back on your board. He says, well, you wouldn't be on anybody else's. And so I went back over there, and that first month, I run something like 16,000 miles as a solo driver. It took me about 3 to 4 weeks to fall on my face. He let me have everything I could because I couldn't sleep. I was having nightmares. And it took about 3 or 4 weeks. And I had a load out of Fargo, North Dakota going to Georgia. And I would drive an hour, hour and a half, and I'd stop, take a nap. And I'd drive an hour and a half, stop and take a nap. I had loaded that morning. That's the way that day went. The next morning, I was just like, I called him and told him, hey, look, I'm done. He says, well, you got 3 extra days on that load. He says, I figured you were about ready to bust. And it's like, how does this man know when I'm done? you know? But he knew, and he says, I want you to go out there. I want you to park that truck, set the brakes, and I don't want to see it move for 24 hours. Go to bed. And I did, and still barely got the load there on time because I was so burned out. And then I went to Iraq from working for them, but he was awesome. That was why I was excited when Chris said he'd go to work for him. He's not in the office anymore. He's too old, but his kids still run it.
He sounds a lot like my uncle. My uncle started trucking in the 50s, and then he started his own company, and then he was a dispatcher and stuff. He had about 50 trucks, and he was the same way. Like when I was young and full of piss and vinegar, I bought my first new truck
Mm-hmm.
in 1999, and 1 year later, he told me all through it, he's like, "Son, you better slow down because this don't last, and you're gonna run it right out of yourself." And I'm like, whatever. Maybe that's how you feel when you're old, like you, Uncle Larry. But I can go forever, and it wasn't 18 months later. I mean,
Oh
I ran
yeah.
hard. I had a lot of payments too to make. That helps motivate you quite a bit. But and I
Oh
came in
yeah.
there, I ran it right out of me that first go around, and I was like, I hate this truck, but I still got 3.5 more years of payments. But he was right.
Mm,
He knew how all the stories played out. He tried to tell you, but no, most of them I had to go find out how the story
well,
ended for myself.
oh, we're all young bucks. We're big, bad, and bulletproof. We can do anything.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like all the old timers telling me, don't be jumping out of the back of them trailers and come out of the truck proper and this, that, and the other. You'll regret it one of these days. And
Hmm.
I came out of my truck face first on that Peterbilt and with wet metal. You know how Peterbilt's got them old 379s and the metal steps.
Yep.
You come out and you got leather kickers on, and my foot hit that and slid, and I raked them steps down my back.
Yep.
And
Yep.
was winded, barely crawled myself back up in the truck. But I had a big old raspberry bruise from my waist all the way up between my shoulder blades, and about as wide as my back was. And I still loaded the trailer and rolled up towels and put them under each shoulder so my back wouldn't hit the back of the seat. And that was in Memphis, and I hauled that sucker to California. Right, met up with a couple other Christensen drivers on our way. I think was about 5 of us. Of course, you got to remember this is back in the old days. There was about 5 of us come out of the Flying J there at Kingman, Arizona.
Yep.
2 hours later, we were sitting in Barstow, California. That was a hell of a night.
That's some trucking.
With the 5 of us, is like, step to the right, we're coming through. Triple digits across the Mojave Desert. Those trucks, I think about the fastest we could get them, that it was about 106, was about as fast as they go. And all 5 of us, right down through there. I had that big old raspberry bruise on my back. I got to hurting really bad. We ended up having to, this is one of those cool things. And you started when I did, so you get it. I got to hurting real bad, and I guess I zoned out fighting the pain. And because I was leading the pack running the front door, I usually did. And had one of them come around me and come up front, and they slowed me down. Finally got my attention, I guess, snapped me out of it. And because I just white line and I was hurting, and pulled off to the shoulder, and they got on the radio, and a prime driver team, they got on the radio and asked if somebody could drive one of the guys' other trucks. My best friend Jack was at the time was part of the group. So he climbed in my truck and he drove my truck and got a prime team offered. And the husband got out and drove Jack's truck, and his wife drove the prime truck, and just had to wait on her to get there when she got there because he got in the truck and them boys went to triple digits again. And I mean, well, we weren't a half hour out of Barstow at that time at that speed, but we did all that in 2 hours. Was stopped and had an ambulance out. They had called an ambulance already. All this kind of stuff. It was about 2.5 hours. Even dealing with that, we sat in Barstow, and then Jack called the office and told them what was going on. The rest of the guys went on down to LA and dropped their loads, and they parked his truck beside mine, and he gave me a painkiller and tucked me in, locked my truck up, went got in his, and sat there and babysat me for the night. And all, but it was lots of fun. Can't do that
It
nowadays, but it was lots of fun. Trucking was lots of fun back then. People talked on the CB. You had fun.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
not
that's why
like
I
it is
started this
nowadays.
this podcast, right? Because when I'm thinking back on things like that was fun, right? The 90s before we had cell
Eh,
phones and it was just a CB radio.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'm a bit of a radio snob and all, because this is a story for you. Back, I hadn't been driving a couple of years. Ran a load out to California and met this guy. He's from California, divorced. His wife and kids lived up in Oregon. I was divorced. My husband or ex-husband and kids lived in Arkansas. We would meet up every time I went to California. He'd always show up at the truck stop with a single red rose. We'd go to dinner, movies, or have a date. It was one of those things. His ex-wife and kids in Oregon and mine in Arkansas. It just wasn't going to work, you know.
Right.
But he bought me. I was running a little Cobra 29,
Yeah.
typical newbie in the truck type thing, and Blue Frog was out there. I don't know if you remember him. He had a camper he set out there. It's back when you had the T8, I think the one they call the East, and then the 76 was across the street, and you had the big old bingo truck stop. Well, the small bingo truck stop on the other side of the interstate, on the north side of the interstate. There at Ontario, California. And Blue Frog used to sit outside the 76 over there and work on CBs in his big old camper trailer. Well, the guy I was seeing and all, he bought me my first Galaxy 33 radio and put it in the truck. And of course, cell phones, the back then were biggest suitcases. If you had
Yep.
one, you had to be
Cost a
rich to have
fortune.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like every day he bought me that Galaxy, and every day we went to the high side of channel 22 and would try and chase Skip and catch each other on the radio. Succeeded sometimes, but that was part of the fun of it. It was cool. It's like meeting somebody and running with them down the road, and you just change channels, go to an upper channel, lower channel, try and catch each other and catch Skip rolling. I mean, what else you gonna do when you're going down the road? You
Yeah.
gotta have something to do. And if you wanted to, you could pick a fight.
Right. There was plenty
Yeah,
of
oh, I tell you,
that.
well, you can imagine being a woman in the early 90s out there running the roads by myself, what I had to put up with. Everybody assuming I made my money, with my legs in the air on the back row of the truck stop parking lot. But
Right.
that wasn't me. I was running the loads up and down and stuff. Oh, you need to be at home taking care of man. You need to be home doing this. You need to be home. And well, that's fine. You need to be home too, taking care of your old lady, so the 17-year-old neighbor boy ain't getting the thrill of his life. Usually, most of the guys, when they get on there and start that, I know that they're just bored. They're looking for a fight. Some of them might actually mean it. They're just trying to stay awake, entertain. So, you come back with them 90% of the time, it doesn't end up being an argument. And if you're going the same way, you end up running 2,000 miles with them bullshitting.
Right.
That's how it would start out. I was coming out of, where was it I loaded? Over there in New Jersey or something other. Jack Griffey, this is also back when I was trucking with Christensen. Jack was at the TA at Wheeling, West Virginia, there on 70.
Yeah. Hole in the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, we had met up there and we'd both gotten loaded. We gotten loaded in different places because we always, through dispatch and this, that, and the other kind of stuff, try and keep up with each other and all. But stopped there. Okay, so this was after Bill and I split because I was running by myself. Anyway, we started out Wheeling, West Virginia, just me and Jack, about 6, 7 o'clock at night. We're gonna make it across Ohio at night. Less cops. Back when it was 55 for big trucks and the fours could run 75, and how stupid that was.
Mm-hmm.
But we come out of that TA there, the two of us, and talking on 19. And of course, woman on the radio, that just picks up other people. When we start going, and our trucks only run about 72 miles an hour at the time. And that's what we're doing, 72 miles an hour across freaking Ohio. Me in the lead to start out with. Jack, I'm trying to remember if Jack was heavier. I know we yo-yoed back and forth in the hills. One of us would make it to the top of the hill, and the other one would beat us to the beat the other one to the bottom of the hill. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And we just slowly start picking up people. By the time we got to Columbus, Ohio, we had a big old long line back there. We lost some there, gained some there. I was no longer in the lead. It was a big old yo. We worked trucks through that wanted to go faster or whatever. Not that there were too many wanting to go faster than what we were across there. But by the time we come out the other side of Columbus and hit the first curve back there, I looked back in my rearview mirror and could not see the end of the line of trucks. We from Columbus all the way to Indiana line, we kept hearing about these two bears in the middle at the 4 working hard. By the time we got, they were gone. We were aware of them, this, that, and other. And about 10 miles away, we were about to 14, 15 and asking about it. It's like, I don't know. They ain't there now. So we keep on trucking, never checked up or nothing. Bailed off that first exit and went to the Petro there at New Paris, Ohio. Pulled into the fuel pumps to get fuel, and that's where we were going to crash for the night. And as we were pulling into our parking spots, we were hearing that those two bears were back out there at the 4. They just left. I bet we had 100 trucks or more. It was just the prettiest thing seeing all them lights going down the road together, nose to tail, trucking it up, you know. And everybody having their own conversations and the fun and nobody argued about nothing being caught in the back. Everybody worked together and trucks rotated positions and this, that, and the other because of the hills and how they pull or how they fly. It just worked. It was
Yeah,
an
it was
awesome
fun.
night.
Yeah, it's like, I
Yeah.
don't know, you lose, like, time disappears in those moments, right? And there's like a symphony, a harmony that happens. It's just fun. Well, one thing you mentioned on the other show that it made me write it down to talk to you about it, because you said when you were talking about your training in Houston before you went over to Kuwait, that nothing
Oh,
they
yeah.
trained you for compared to the real experience. And I was curious about what things you meant by that.
Well, I mean, in every aspect almost. I mean, I come from a military family, so I wasn't stupid about that kind of stuff in the living. I've been educated, and one of my best friends at the time, Earl, he's prior military, and my brother's Navy, and so I got sat down and talked to before I went down there. The trucks, the lifestyle, you don't have flat mirrors on the trucks. We got a big old flat mirror, and then you have a convex mirror under it for helping you see them blind spots when you're backing up. What would have been a flat mirror on our trucks here was a convex mirror on those over there. So it really messed with your back and stuff a lot because there was a lot of guys that didn't know how to back up with the convex mirror. Now, me, if there's a mirror on the truck, I'm going to use it, by God. And so when I was backing up and stuff, I learned to use those convex mirrors on the bottoms. And some of them guys just had a hell of a time learning how, figuring out how to back up. Some of them couldn't back them trucks up, save their lives. Give them a flat mirror and they were fine, but them convex mirrors messed with them. That and, of course, they were cab overs, setback axle cab overs and stuff. A lot of those guys. And in the shifting, you shifted those things like you do a car here. You mashed the clutch every time you shifted it.
Hmm.
They didn't have them synchronized like you do here. Now, I did learn how to float them.
Of course
I'm an
you
old
did. You
school
had to
truck.
try,
Of
right?
course. Who wouldn't?
Right.
you know, you used to driving around and having anywhere from 13, 15, 18 speeds and stuff. You go over there and they give you this little thing it's like, what the hell is that? That's supposed to be a shifter. you know? But yeah, you mashed the clutch every time you shifted it. All those European cab overs were like that. Mercedes, Volvos, Mans, and Ivecos, whatever they call them. Some of them were semi-automatic, so you had a little rocker switch there and stuff. You just rocked it forward or rocked it back to do this, that, and the other, or you could put it in automatic, which was not like automatics here. It was weird. Wasn't a full automatic. You couldn't just put it in gear and go. And changing tires. Nowhere did they tell us we'd be changing our own tires on the side of the freaking road. It'd take a crew to do it, about 4 or 5 people, but we'd change our own flats over there in Iraq. We could do it in 30 minutes without power tools.
Hmm.
So I had a pretty good crew over there, but there was a lot of stuff, it's a big culture shock. I knew I was going to get shot at sooner or later, but it's different. People can tell you and they can describe it and they can tell you their own personal experiences or whatever, but you don't really get it until you do it. There was the life, the risks. They tried to downplay some of, they tell you it was dangerous, but they downplayed the danger and stuff. Sat in Houston for 5 weeks. Wasn't supposed to be there that long. Sat there because we couldn't get flak vests because there was a shortage of flak vests at the time. And I sat down there for 5 weeks. We did all of our orientation. They talk about banana suits and how to put our face mask on and clear them and all that kind of stuff. They teach you all that stuff and they tell you, but I don't think they really spend enough time letting the guys know exactly how dangerous it was because there was a lot, and of course, nobody knows. You don't know if you're going to be a warrior or a coward when the
Right.
bullets start flying until the bullets start flying. And just because you were one or the other the first time the bullets flew doesn't mean you're going to be that way any other time they fly. And all, and I've seen some of the bravest guys, prior military and stuff, the first time they got bricks thrown at them or rebar through their windshield or got shot at, they were on the first thing smoking coming back to the States. Nothing against them. It's just, everybody has their limits of what they're willing to go play Russian roulette with their life with. And that's what you're doing over there when you
Right.
drove over there. Every time you went outside the wire, it was a cast of the dice as whether you're going to get shot at and go in the next gate alive or in a stretcher or dead. But of course, I'm an adrenaline junkie, so yeah, you know how that goes. but but yeah, I mean, it's just different. I don't think, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know if they even tried to teach us to get into our heads, ingrain into us how dangerous it was. I don't think a lot of us wouldn't have listened.
Right.
And all the excitement, the fear, the potential. I don't know how most people went over there, but I went. I was running away from the ex-husband who tried to choke me to death. I thought, I go over there and make a bunch of money and come home, buy my own truck, and life would be better. That kind of dream and stuff. And there's just all sorts of hopes and expectations. But also, I was going to do for somebody else's son and daughter what I knew somebody would do for mine because mine was going to go in the military. He's talking about when he graduated high school, he's going to go in the military. Been doing that since he was old enough to walk and talk. And with the family I have, it was my way to serve my country and support our troops. So I
Right.
didn't go just for the money. Of course, like I said, and to be perfectly honest, coming out of Bill trying to choke me to death and being where I was, I didn't really care if I lived or died. I went over there and figured one way or another, my life is going to get better, my life is going to get worse, but something's got to change. And, it's a hell of a deal to run halfway around the country to a war zone to find yourself. But that's basically what happened. I learned more about who I am, where my limits are, what my weaknesses are, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, just all the way around. And even coming from a very patriotic family like I do and all, I think I came home more patriotic. One of the criticisms on reviews on my book was that it was too patriotic. And I'm like, how can you be too patriotic? But yeah, I went over there to run away from the ex and found a sense of purpose. Everybody wonders why they're on the face of the planet and what's their purpose and will they make a mark or will they do this or will they do it? Well, you ain't got to be rich and famous. You ain't got to be in the news to make a mark on the world. Just being you can make a mark on the world and can change parts of the world. Going over there did that in lots of ways. It just, life becomes a little, I'm going to put it this way. For me, life became more peaceful, maybe a little less lone or a little more lonely. But when you figure out who you are and what you want out of life and you set a goal and a plan to try and get there, you start clearing out the dead weight. And I've changed a lot. I'm not the same person I was before I went to Iraq. And I came back with a code of honor, integrity, and respect. Not that I didn't have it before, but ingrained in me to the point that I think sometimes it might not be healthy. I have a loyalty streak in me. I have a loyalty streak in me that can be detrimental to me at times. But that's how I was raised. People who mean something to you, the guys over there, once they ran in my convoy and was under me after I made convoy commander, once they ran it, they were my guys. I don't care where they went after that. They were my guys, and if they needed anything, they came to me and asked. Hey, Cindy, can you find this? Hey, Cindy, can you do this? There's not a lot of that nowadays. People are too much about me, my life, and getting it down the road. And that doesn't mean you have to take the whole world on, but you can take on and do the best you can in your own little circle. And if you treat people with respect when you first, to a certain amount of respect when you first, I mean, you can't give them everything yet. They ain't earned it. You got to earn a little bit of all of that, but some of it should be given freely until proven that you can't. And people have forgotten that nowadays. But I like doing interviews. I like talking about trucking. I don't mind being on your show whenever you want. I love to help and give you ideas and help in the background. If you want that, I'm cool with it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Well,
Well, I'm going to let you go because I need to call my husband back.
yeah, my wife popped her head in here one time, so I figure I
Just
better go figure out how I'm going to help solve dinner.
have fun with that. I'm going
Well,
to
you
go
have a
back
great
in.
night.
I'm glad you were still able to talk, though.
Yeah, it was a fantastic time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Have fun with this. I think it's cool.
Well, have a great night, and we'll catch up somewhere or another soon.
That'll work.
Thanks, Cindy. Bye bye.
All right, hon. Bye.
Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed both of those interviews. I'll continue to post just the interviews on YouTube and on the website, channel19experience.com. So you can find them there and share them easily. Also, I'll figure out what to do with the parts of the interviews that didn't end up on the show. I've got before and after the air quotes interviews portion for everybody. I've got interviews with Danger Dave and Big Cal and Michelle and Cindy. There's plenty more that was entertaining, was more of the freewheeling, not thinking about it so much as a structured conversation or a question and answer, just kind of flying by the seat of our pants discussion. So there's plenty of entertaining content in those. I'll figure out how to get some of those up too so people can hear what the rest of the conversation is. Some listeners have asked, are you going to tell us what's on the next episode? Well, so a couple realities of coordinating a trucking podcast that I didn't necessarily bake into the equation, but a couple realities are I tend to fly by the seat of my pants a lot of the time to begin with, so I'm part of the problem. But also, let's face it, guest schedules are unpredictable. We got folks driving trucks, Cindy's out there in a pilot car. You don't always know when your day's going to begin, when your day's going to end, how many things are going to go as planned. What looks like a good idea at noon quickly falls apart by 4:30 or sometimes 12:30 for that matter. I have a list of great guests who have reached out, and I'm always looking for more. It doesn't have to be you. You can nominate your friends. We all know great storytelling friends, so get them on here. But on the list coming up in future episodes here, I've got a bunch of drivers, owner-operators, small fleet owners. Danger Dave has an update, and I'll probably wrangle my little brother trucker into that discussion as well. We've got a group of trucker wives that want to have a roundtable discussion, so we'll figure out a way to coordinate talking with all of them. And also I've got different folks from different aspects of the industry. There's a group of people who have really great truck driver stories. It's our favorite arch nemesis in the industry, the dispatchers, the fleet managers, the driver managers, pick your name. But they have a ton of trucking stories. I was a dispatcher for small fleet, big fleet, and the volume of funny trucking tales that can come out of being in a dispatch room of a couple thousand truck fleet is It's staggering. There's plenty of things that you never thought you would hear on a phone, get on a Qualcomm message that happen on a regular basis when you have that quantity of drivers running around. And they are more than willing to jump on the podcast and talk about y'all. So there's going to be more of those guests as well as we continue to explore all the facets of transportation and the trucking experience. We've got, hopefully we'll be able to get lined up Tax Mommy Jackie and also some safety experts, CSA experts, just people who can shed some light, maybe share some information. We'll try to line those up well enough in advance so we have an opportunity to post on Facebook and spread the word. So if there's questions that you want to ask, we can get those baked into the interview. There's probably some potentially controversial figures in the trucking industry who I also hope to be able to get on the show. This is not really I don't intend this to be a softball program for people to come just pitch their stuff without the opportunity to challenge some of it. I know some of these products and vendors in the trucking space, there's a diverse set of opinions about some of them. We'll also try to leave time so we can get those questions rounded up so we can ask tough questions to people who should be able to answer tough questions about the product or service that they provide to the trucking industry. I'm in conversation with a couple comedians, so that should be entertaining if we can get them lined up to get on the show. All in all, there's a lot planned, a lot coming. It's just a matter of piecing it all together and seeing what works for people. My goal is not to sit on an interview very long after we do it. I'd like to get it out there that same week. Now that may mean longer podcasts. I don't know how we want to handle that. I might just release some of them separately. That's an option too. I just don't want someone to be on an interview for the podcast and then have to sit here and wait 2, 3, 4 weeks before that comes out and share it with y'all. So we'll continue to juggle the schedule and piece it all together, and I'll share what I can share, but also understand that it's trucking where all the best laid plans go to die. So let me knock it out with a couple partners of the program. Just a reminder, Big Cal's Truckin' Kitchen. You can find him on Facebook. I'm going to share out his song, Big Cal's Truckin' Kitchen song, which is pretty cool. So we'll get that shared out with you. I'll do a better job. Good suggestion that came in was sharing the social media link of the person that I interview in the description of the podcast, so it's right there. No matter which platform you're on, you can easily hit a link and get back over to it. I do have them linked out in the interview section of the website, but I'll start getting the link on the podcast episode itself, or the links in this case, so you can go check out their pages easily. And then also MJ Love Johnson, which is Michelle's Facebook call sign. And so you can find her, go check her out. I know she was on vacation, some pretty cool footage where they went on vacation up in Oregon. There's some hot springs up there. It looks like a place that I'd like to check out sometime. But plenty of good videos, photographs, some good music on Michelle's page. So go check that out, MJ Love Johnson on Facebook. Quick reminder, like, follow, share, subscribe, download, and of course spread the word. Share it with your friends. A lot of the people I've had on the show so far have been word of mouth. Somebody saw the podcast, shared it with somebody, next thing you know, I'm on a conversation with one of these great guests that we've had. So thank you for that. There's tons of amazing people in this business, and having everybody help connect the dots to get these folks on the podcast is really a blessing. So thank you for listening this week. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Please tell us what you think. Email us, message us. We're here. We make a lot of responses every week, so it's really great to hear from you all. We'll see you all next week. We've got work to do.